Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a healthy, sustainable vision for the future of humanity with Tom Bougsty, psychologist and author. I'm Charissa Sims, live event host for HumanityStream, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to make conscious living prevalent worldwide by 2040. And I'm coming to you live from Lafayette, Colorado. I also wanted to welcome those streaming live through the HumanityStream Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Stream Plus members that are here in the green room with us. Thank you for being members. We appreciate you. And I wanted to do a special shout out to the Sign Network with John and Summer Raymer at sign.network. Because it is a live program, we will have time for comments and questions. So try to get your question in within the first 30 to 40 minutes of the program. And you can post it in the chat wherever you're watching, and you may get your question answered by Tom. It's such an incredible opportunity. So I hope you'll take us up on that. Let me share a little more about Tom. As a psychologist for over 45 years, Tom Bougsty has worked to answer two fundamental questions. How do humans, on the one hand, act as such incredible co-creators, and on the other hand, act as co-destroyers of the life support systems necessary for our continued existence? Secondly, how can we work with our co-creative and co-destructive natures so we can responsibly develop a healthy and sustainable future? Tom's two books have helped answer these questions, and they are called Transform the World into a Healthy Sustainable Future and Healthy Sustainable Living, a Vision for the Future of Humanity, the title of the show today. Welcome, Tom.
Nice to be here with you.
Yes, I'm so thrilled to learn from you and hear your wisdom. We know we're all going to benefit today. Would you please share what motivated you to dedicate so much of your life to understanding how humans can develop a healthy and sustainable future?
Sure, there was really two events that occurred over 50 years ago that ultimately motivated me to do this. One was the first Earth Day that initiated the whole process. And at that Earth Day meeting, I realized that despite our incredible progress as a species, that we often succeed at the expense of other people and harm to the planetary life support systems. And therefore, I concluded that we need to make some major changes to our traditional approach to progress that frequently damages our life support systems and threatens us ultimately with an unsustainable future. And so, following this disturbing discovery at the first Earth Day, I had a personal experience that confirmed that we often succeed, but do so by destroying parts of our life support systems. And in this case, it was soon after the first Earth Day that I started a summer job for the Forest Service south of the Teton Range in Wyoming. And when my survey crew left camp for the weekend, I was excited to go backpacking to explore the wilderness. So I took my homemade backpacks since they didn't have backpacks commercially available at that time, and I hiked up a mountain stream into the forest. I felt excited for the adventure as well as proud of myself for creating a backpack so I could stay out all weekend. As I hiked the creek, I rounded a corner and I was thrilled to see a cow moose and her calf on the hillside above me. Suddenly, though, the mother moose must have smelled me as she whirled around and stampeded down the ridge straight toward me. In fear for my life, I quickly looked for a tree with a low-hanging branch so I could jump up and hopefully pull myself to safety. I spotted such a tree, and when I turned to see where the moose was, she was right behind me. I threw down my pack as I jumped up, grabbed the branch, and pulled myself into the tree just as she went under me. Then suddenly, it dawned on me my new pack was lying vulnerable on the ground under the tree. I I immediately started looking for a branch that I could break off so I could defend my pack. Fortunately, for all of us, the moose turned and ran back to her calf, and together they safely headed into the woods. Meanwhile, still sitting in a tree, trembling with excitement, I decided to think about what just happened here. Initially, a wave of relief surged through me that I had found this tree that may have saved my life. And then I thought about my wild impulse to risk my life anyway in order to protect my backpack. I wondered, where did I ever learn that it's worth risking my life to defend some property? Suddenly it dawned on me that I was thinking all about myself. What about the moose and her calf? She had risked her life to save herself, her family, and defend one of the last wild places for her species to survive. Ultimately, I awakened to the reality that I was not the victim here. I was really the perpetrator. I only became the victim after I seemed to threaten the lives of the moose and her calf, similar to what humans have done for generations. I felt ashamed of how self centered and arrogant I was. Eventually, I started connecting the dots, though, with what had happened with the first Earth Day. I was shocked to discover that I was one of those humans who fail to notice how we contribute to the destruction of other life on the planet. I sheepishly concluded that I needed to figure out solutions to this deadly human drama in which I was playing a part. My traditional self and social lifestyles made me contribute to what appears as the greatest tragedy ever committed by humanity. That is, we work hard to benefit our lives and our special interest groups, but in the process often contribute to the destruction of the very life support systems essential for our continuing success and ultimately for our continuing survival. In efforts to prevent our eventual demise, I decided to try to understand why we care for our personal and social interests, but often do so at the expense of other people and our planetary and universal life support systems. Finally dawned on me that we have traditionally often been trying to solve the wrong problem. We normally focus primarily on understanding and solving external material problems to satisfy our needs. In contrast, we frequently fail to consider the internal belief systems that often help produce many of these external problems. Thus, our perceptions, values, our behavioral choices stand as original sources of many of the problems that we increasingly threaten human life with. In confronting this news perspective that human beliefs and values may be our greatest danger, I decided to change my major in college. I'd been studying to be an engineer where I would primarily work to improve the external material world. In contrast, I concluded that I needed to study to be a psychologist. In this way, I could help understand and fix the original source of many of these external problems by changing our internal belief systems. As a psychologist, I could also help people understand how to benefit themselves and hopefully do so without harming others, the planet, and reality as a whole. In this context, I concluded that we need to develop a new value system, like a new compass that guides us on how to live in harmony with the whole. This new value system would prioritize the two most fundamental needs in life: how to be healthy and sustainable. Health depends on our growth and maintenance so we can perform our best in life. Meanwhile, our sustainability depends on how to avoid destruction to ourselves, society, the planet, and reality as a whole. To make it easier for you to understand what I've learned on this journey to create a healthy, sustainable future, the team here will soon show you several short video presentations that I've previously completed for HumanityStream. These will include excerpts from my first three foundational steps that I believe are essential if we intend to create healthy, sustainable living. These three steps provide the necessary foundation for a 12-step methodology on how we can ultimately co-create a future that works for all. Since I've not yet completed these 12 steps for publication with HumanityStream, you can read about these in my most recent book, Transform the World into a Healthy and Sustainable Future.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. When you were talking about the moose and her baby, the calf, it took me back to Alaska. I grew up in Alaska. There was moose everywhere. In fact, our high school was the Palmer Moose. So I was really taken back to the wilderness, and what an adventure that you had. And it seems like an awakening of sorts uh, during that adventure in the wilderness. Well, Tom, what do you recommend as the first thing for us to do to successfully co-create a healthy and sustainable future?
I think in order for us to live in oneness with all reality, I think that we first need to better understand what is reality. And although reality as the manifestation and potential of everything remains far too complex for us to really fully understand, we've made some great strides in identifying some of its basic features. And I'll now share an overview of several of these features with a slide that will be brought up in a moment that'll help guide us on how to co-create a healthy and sustainable future.
Okay, wonderful. So, this first clip, like Tom said, it'll explain that we are spiritual beings who can systematically and responsibly evolve reality. So, can we play that first clip, Jim?
To help understand our consciousness and how it contributes to the evolution of all reality, I will now explain this figure. In the beginning, Source, often called Spirit, God, or whatever name you prefer, burst forth with the evolutionary impulse to start creating reality as a whole. The universal intelligence introduced by Source provided two forms of evolution to further develop the whole. These included physical evolution and conscious evolution. Physical evolution receives the most attention as it has traditionally been identified as the primary transformational process in the universe. More recently, though, conscious evolution has increasingly contributed to evolution. In general, physical evolution introduces overt changes with matter in the material world. In comparison, conscious evolution more subtly changes the underlying information and energy in the quantum world. Important to note, quantum energy and information make up the matter that we perceive in the material world. The combination of these material changes based on physical evolution and quantum changes from conscious evolution naturally evolves reality as a whole. The challenge that we now face is to grow our consciousness so we more fully and accurately perceive reality with our limited personal reality. We can then choose how to act to live in harmony with the whole world, since this ultimately determines if we will survive. As spiritual beings, we function as co-creators in reality, almost like we're miniature gods who can either help or harm evolution as a whole. We enjoy the powers to co-create with reality in two ways: through our consciousness via conscious evolution, and through our actions via physical evolution. Fortunately, Source or Spirit blessed each of us with four dynamics that make us co-creators with reality. These include our natural power, unique worth, and love dynamics. These constitute what I call our spiritual authentic self. For instance, consider the power of your consciousness to perceive parts of the world that you can then convert into your unique personal version of reality. You can next consider potential actions on how you might change this reality. Finally, you have the power to actually take actions to change the world. In this process, you can use your power in unique ways that nobody else can do that can generate worth for yourself and hopefully for the world. In addition, love serves as the life force in which You value your personal thoughts and actions, including how you want to contribute to both you and the world's successful evolution. Ultimately, we need to expand our love so we can use our power to take unique and worthy actions that not only benefit ourselves, but also benefit other people, our entire species, the ecosystems of the planet, and the evolution of the whole. In sharp contrast, we also need to understand how we failed to live in integrity with reality and how too often we become human co-destroyers rather than spiritual co-creators. To better comprehend this, we need to understand how the evolution of reality has progressed through 6 major levels. Then we need to understand that most people have progressed to consider and value only 2 of these 6 levels. So if we can show clip 3 now.
Okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit. Thank you, Tom. So I love how this visual with the chart, how you categorize this with physical and conscious. And then it was very clear the ingredients: matter, information, energy, and potential. So was this a download that you received to categorize like this?
Mm. Yeah, through the years, I've had a lot of downloads, especially at night when I'm sleeping. I'll wake up with, oh, here's the next step that I'm looking for. Uh,
Mhm.
and so, yes, it is a lot of downloaded information through the years.
Oh, wonderful. And then breaking down the physical, you were talking about the nucleus and electromagnetic frequencies. Can you get into that a little bit?
It's like we have everything that we normally see as material reality is actually made out of energy and information. So all these energy frequencies are underlying in the quantum realm of reality, what we perceive up here in the material realm. And we're addicted to the material realm, and so we mostly interpret everything through that limited version of reality. But on this energetic, informational level, we have a lot more that we can be tapping into. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for clarifying that. All right, so now let's play that next clip. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Bougsty, and I'm glad to be with you today. I want to share with you 3 steps that lay the foundation necessary for us to succeed in finally co-creating a healthy and sustainable future. These steps include step 1, that grounds us in our original spiritual authentic self, followed by step 2, that portrays 6 levels of evolution that generates our new human story. In step 3, we awaken to our authentic self and our new human story by expanding our consciousness. We can then perceive and act in integrity with our natural oneness with all reality. Historically, we've used our present human story to create remarkable successes on how to improve human and social lives. In this process, though, we have unsuspectingly and tragically contributed to the destruction of many of our life support systems across these 6 levels of reality. In the end, this leads towards a human-made global catastrophe. For instance, the Doomsday Clock, published by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, indicates that we are almost out of time to save ourselves from our destruction. Furthermore, the UN Convention on Biological Diversity estimates that 150 species go extinct each day. Consequently, the 6th great extinction on the planet rages on, eroding the interdependent, life-sustaining nature of the world. While the life support systems necessary for our ongoing existence are rapidly failing, we continue to focus largely on satisfying our temporary human desires instead of fulfilling our long-term human, planetary, and evolutionary needs. Consequently, before it's too late, this presentation introduces an opportunity to redefine who we are and how we can save ourselves and our planetary home. So from
So,
the, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
So from the latter part of that slide, um, I can continue on that we can see that realities evolve from these six levels, from the spiritual source of all to the evolutionary level, then to the planetary level, then to the species, finally to the social, and to the individual human levels. And unfortunately, the evolution of human consciousness evolves in the opposite direction. Instead of evolving up like evolution did, we are evolving down, but we've only gone down the first two levels in most cases. So unfortunately, we are traditionally focused on just these top two levels of our human and social levels of concern, even though we're everything we do on those levels affect the lower four levels that supply us with our essential life support systems. And according to Ken Wilber, the majority of people in the world have not evolved their consciousness beyond these two levels of human egocentric and social ethnocentric concerns. And therefore, most humans act to serve their personal and social needs and desires, but normally fail to act to benefit our species, the planet, and the evolutionary processes that also serve as our essential life support systems. Consequently, people have traditionally worked to benefit themselves and their special interest groups primarily. In this process, they often unknowingly harm these deeper levels of reality necessary for our continuing existence. As a result, we act as co creators in many of our personal, human, and social group activities, while we unsuspectingly also act at the same time as co destroyers with our deeper species and planetary and evolutionary life support systems. For example, consider the food that we eat. People tend to eat what we have traditionally done as a person and as a culture, or we eat personally what tastes good, or we eat what we can afford. In contrast, how many people choose food that's based on the food production that exploited labor of our species around the world, or damaged and polluted the water and land resources of the planet that we ultimately depend on? Thus, we've frequently been taught to value ourselves and our special interest concerns as more important than the rest of reality. Unfortunately, we fail to recognize and value that we are part of, interdependent with, and ultimately one with all levels of the whole. Our belief that we live separately in the world makes us take care of ourselves like we are more important than the oneness of all the other levels of reality. And failing to perceive and care for our oneness with all the levels that provide us with life support systems, however, naturally propels us toward long-term destruction.
Mm.
Therefore, in this presentation, I'll explore how we can normally fail to live in oneness with reality as a whole. And this failure to live in oneness means that our limited consciousness will ultimately destroy enough of our life support systems so we personally and as a species will likely perish in the process. Consequently, we must change both our consciousness and our behaviors if we intend to co create a healthy and sustainable future.
Mm. Wonderful. I was wondering if you could give some examples of what types of food would be contributing to a sustainable future that are good for the planet, good for humanity, and what do you think? What are some suggestions?
Well, it would certainly be what we're moving toward. At least folks are often suggested to buy organically so that we're not poisoning the land and the water and the different resources that ultimately we rely on. And also eat in more healthy ways where we're not so reliant on some of the products that we have traditionally relied on of meats or of all the processed foods where we have created this appetite around where our appetite is more important than the quality of the food we're eating.
Right, right. Okay, that makes sense. I was wondering if you were going to go into specific foods, but that makes sense to be buy organic or maybe grow your own food, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, what are the three foundational steps that you propose that are essential for us to co-create a healthy and sustainable future?
I've come to believe that our three foundational natures of our spiritual, evolutionary, and human natures, that those must be integrated for us to evolve successfully in oneness with reality. And to accomplish this, I think that we intentionally need to integrate our oneness of our spiritual, authentic self, which are those four components of power, uniqueness, worth, and love, with our six stages of evolution uh, that evolves from spirit to universe to planet to our species to our social and individual natures, and in that process we'll expand our human consciousness, which is the third component that we need to be doing at the same time. And so these three steps provide us with the natural foundation, I think, for us to successfully co-create a healthy and sustainable future.
Wonderful. And I'd like to go deeper into these concepts. So, as co-creators in consciousness, there's power, uniqueness, worth, and love. Is it embracing those aspects of ourselves? How can we move forward with these concepts?
Yes, yes, that's a good question, and I'll try to weave that in where people can really understand it in final meditation I do.
Okay.
We can embrace all of those and see how we can integrate them into ourselves and ourselves into the world in much more loving ways than what we have traditionally been taught to do.
Oh, I love that. I think embodying that and integrating it into our being through your meditation, which we'll do a little bit later, that's going to be wonderful. So I appreciate that. Can you provide an example of how our present human story invites destructive results and contrast this with our new healthy and sustainable practices?
Okay. Um, the, an example would be of this of our present human story versus what our actual future new human story would be, which I haven't discussed yet, and maybe I need to cover that before I answer that question for you, um, because I see that our spiritual authentic self with these four dynamics that make us miniature gods here, make us need to live up to our potentials, our spiritual potentials as human beings. And to do this, I think we need to be able to integrate these four components of our power, uniqueness, worth, and love into our new human story. And the new human story consists of these six levels of evolution that we need to integrate into so that we're taking care of our oneness with all of these at the same time. And in the process, we will expand our consciousness so we can actually be participating consciously with our behaviors to contribute to all that gives us life instead of just what we've been taught that gives us life. And so we're ultimately integrating these three natures of our spiritual, evolutionary, and human natures so we can then perform in these various ways that I'm recommending. So to give you a contrast between what our present human story does and what our new human story does on each of these six levels, I would say that on the human level, that our present human story promotes our self-centered living as individuals that frequently results in us harming other people socially, the planet environmentally, as well as disrupts the natural evolutionary processes. And these damages progressively contribute to an unsustainable future. And this contrasts with our oneness centered living that perceives and values how the whole functions. So we naturally perceive the complexity of all the pieces involved. Therefore, we can consider and prevent most of the negative consequences that would otherwise occur in these undetected areas. And ultimately, such a oneness perspective that we have as a human being is necessary to co create healthy, sustainable living. And if we shift to the next level of our social level, an example would be authoritarian governments based on our present human story exploits and harms whatever does not serve the perceived personal interests of the authority, which we see clearly today in the political world we're in. And in contrast, democratic and oneness centered governance opens the door to cooperation and mutual decision making. And we can then work together to promote growth across all six levels of reality. If we turn to our species level, capitalism prioritizes human success in accumulating money and consumption, and in the process, often dangerously exploits and harms many of the other levels of reality. And on the other hand, a healthy, sustainable economy would prioritize the health and the sustainability of all levels of reality as its ultimate goal. We can then pursue money and consumption as long as we do not significantly harm any of these other six levels of our life support systems. We shift to our planetary level. We already have six of the nine planetary boundaries that we've violated with our present human story. And thereby, this propels us toward an unsustainable future. In comparison, all nine of our planetary boundaries need to operate in integrity with health and sustainability in this new system for successful planetary living.
Mm.
Then, on the evolutionary level, we have growth and maintenance efforts based on our present human story that frequently significantly result in destruction and unhealthy and unsustainable outcomes. And this contrasts with our new human story, where we have growth, maintenance, and the prevention of destruction across all levels of this new human story as necessary to promote healthy and sustainable evolution. And then finally, on the spiritual level, our present human story often values belief systems from thousands of years ago as more important and valid than what our societal that our scientific findings and our highest levels of consciousness reveal today. So as spiritual human beings, healthy and sustainability depend on a combination of our scientific findings integrated with our deeper capacities for non-dual awareness, where we witness our ever-present eternal oneness with all.
Mm. So when you talk about oneness, I mean, that is a core belief system within HumanityStream.
Mhm.
How can we feel that oneness in another if on in the 3D world on the surface it seems that we are so different? How can we experience that?
Yes, I'll give you an example in our meditation in terms of how we can see the person instead of just as a human being, but to see their spiritual being nature, because their spiritual being nature is is the light of their power, uniqueness, worth, and love that they don't even know they necessarily have to tap into as their spiritual resources, be a co-creator here. And so they're using instead the human sources of who they are, where their power, uniqueness, worth, and love are all conditional and can be taken from them, where they suddenly are powerless instead of powerful. They're suddenly, instead of unique, they're just odd and strange and not fitting in. If their worth is conditional, where they can suddenly be worthless, and the same with their love, where they can feel that they're unlovable and loveless. And those all trigger these other brain processes that will take us into um, being truly in that old version of who we are, where we're fighting for our lives to protect ourselves, rather than being in this higher level of our spiritual nature of being able to contribute to the world from the best of us instead of struggling with the worst of us trying to contribute.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I would love to hear from our audience wherever you're watching. If you'd like to submit a question or have a comment for Tom, go ahead and put it in the chat wherever you're watching. And while we're waiting for that, do you think it's a good time to guide us on a meditation, Tom, to help
Sure.
us learn how to live in oneness with the six major levels of reality?
I do. I really think that that is crucial for people to absorb a little bit of this because it's mostly just intellectual. This will allow us to embody it to where we can integrate it within us in ways that traditionally we don't do. We're either stuck in our heads or we're stuck in our hearts and trying to explain everything. Um, so, yes, I would like to go ahead and do the meditation, and people can, as we're doing the meditation, you might jot down or recall questions or comments that you may want to make where we can follow up at the end with those. That would be very helpful for, I think, all of us.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, we do have a question, so we can wait until after the meditation.
Okay, great. So, to be able to introduce this meditation, um, we could do a clip. Clip two, I think it is.
Okay. We
One,
have the entire clip. We don't
okay.
have it shortened. It's
Oh, is that
so,
right? Okay.
so do you, whatever you want to do. Do you want to play clip
Why
two?
don't
That's
we why don't we just skip it then?
okay.
And I
Well,
will just go ahead and begin the meditation because I see that as where we're going to really absorb
okay.
and use this for ourselves in ways that we can take into the world. So, to begin this meditation, we want to simply just make ourselves comfortable and be in a safe place. And so if you happen to be driving or operating anything dangerous, you can either stop or do this meditation at a later time. And now just allow yourself to settle in and enjoy the meditation. To begin, simply take a deep breath. And as you let it out, let go of any past concerns. Take another deep breath. And as you let it out, let go of any future concerns. Now take a deep breath and simply be present in this moment. In this meditation, we can deepen our experience by using an Eastern practice in which we extend our arms above our head and collect energy that we pull down into our body, such as this. So initially, we'll connect in oneness with ourself as a unique human being. So take a deep breath, raise your arms to gather your energy to enliven and empower your human body so you can introduce healthy behaviors into the world. Next, take a deep breath and collect more energy so you can direct it into your heart. Each breath ultimately serves to save your life. Thus, each breath represents a natural form of love for your human life. You can now collect more energy with your arms and direct it into your mind. In this way, you can gain the clarity and wisdom to pursue healthy and sustainable living. Finally, pull in more energy and experience your ever-present soul. Awaken to your natural power, uniqueness, worth, and love dynamics of your spiritual, authentic self. These spiritual dynamics empower you to participate in life as a natural co-creator. As you embrace your natural oneness with your body, heart, mind, and soul, You can then share your unique powers and worth in loving ways with others. Thus, you can improve your health and sustainability on both the human and social levels of your life. For example, you can now intentionally share your love and direct it to those people who you already love in your personal life. You can then expand and share your love with everyone you know in your extended social life. And ultimately, you can teach yourself to love all humans on the species level. To accomplish this most easily, you can simply love their ever-present spiritual nature rather than focus on their conditional human nature. Like you, they innately embody the four spiritual dynamics of power, unique worth, and love that enliven all of us. By loving their spiritual self, you may help them awaken to more easily love their own personal human self. As we connect in loving, co-creative ways with ourselves and with all human beings, we can then expand our oneness and share our love with all life on the planet. For example, we can experience our loving connections with the trees and grasses that share their oxygen to save our lives, as we share our carbon dioxide to mutually save their lives. We all exist due to such invisible, loving relationships. We can also share our love directly for the planet that holds us in a loving embrace with gravity, so we do not float off into space. We reciprocate and share our love for the planet by protecting its multiple natural resources, including its air, water, land, and food that makes our life possible. Beyond our life for the planet and love for our planet, we can also experience our love for all evolution. As part of the oneness of the universe, we can share our co-creative powers as we add our positive consciousness and behaviors to benefit the evolution of the universe. In the process, we naturally add our unique verses into the vast field of verses that ultimately contribute to the oneness of the universe of all. Finally, we can share our love for the ever-present eternal nature of ourselves in all reality. Thus, we can simply relax and be our eternal self in the spiritual realm of the oneness of a non-dual reality. As we increase our awareness of our oneness with all six levels of reality, we awaken both our conscious evolution and physical evolution capabilities. In a sense, we intentionally rebirth our human selves to be the co-creators that our spiritual nature blessed us to be. We can now co-create in healthy and sustainable ways with all levels of our universal home. As we complete this meditation, you may want to review and write down any experiences or insights that you might build upon later. And finally, you can take a moment to simply reground yourself so that you can function at your best going forward. And as a last thought, the bottom line seems to be that we're the ones who still have the opportunity to change our internal belief systems so we can change our behaviors to act in integrity and in oneness with all 6 levels of reality that support our lives. Consequently, we have the opportunity to lead the world forward on how to responsibly co-create a healthy and sustainable future. So at this time, I'd like to welcome you to ask any questions or share comments that you may have.
Thank you for that meditation, Tom. That was really beautiful. And I'll just share a few of my thoughts. I was seeing this infinity loop between the trees and myself. And whenever you mentioned one of those aspects of reality in the earth, I saw that below that infinity loop, and I felt so connected more deeply than I ever have before to earth and the trees. Like I really felt it in my being, in my body. And it was beautiful to recognize that, to recognize how much I do appreciate it. Because I would say personally, I don't really appreciate the trees and the earth enough. I mean, I'm not connecting with them a lot. So I think that's a really important place to come from when you're coming into this field of oneness.
What a
So
beautiful example of you being one with in ways that it really felt like you're beyond yourself, you're with it in a way that you are now engulfing that sense of oneness with the world around you. It's like
mhm.
that's what we need to all be doing.
Beautiful. I want to read another comment. Louise says, I love how you picture the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between human and trees as an act of love. I know that almost makes me want to cry. I love trees so much, but like visualizing that exchange is just a whole nother level. At school, it was taught to me as mechanical. It just happens. It's automatic. But trees are like beings, right?
Mhm.
They're alive. So shifting that perspective. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, what do you think about that, Tom?
Yeah, that's great. The more we can see that we are an extension of everything else and that we can influence that by being aware. By shifting our consciousness, we can change our behaviors toward trees and toward grasses and toward all the different things that are giving us life that we normally just take in and take for granted and never notice, and then don't change our behaviors to match the oneness that we're living in.
Mm, yes, beautiful. And then we do have a question, and I feel like it relates to the trees. Mary says, what do you think is possible to do with Amazon forests in Brazil? Corruption continues there, and it seems no one can do anything about it. And those forests are lungs of the earth, so important. And not just lungs of the earth, there's probably undiscovered medicinal, medicines for humanity in there. I would think.
Yeah,
But I know there's nonprofits that are making a difference that are impacting governments. I don't know them off the top of my head, but what do you think about this, Tom? This question?
it just shows that this new human story that I've created through these different levels of evolution is critical for us to be aware of to get us out of just these top 2 levels of where we have corporations that are going to be making money off of cutting the trees and it's going to supply people a few people's welfare in terms of personally, uh, at the expense of all the other Aborigines that are living in the forest, all the other critters that are living in the forest, as well as what it's doing on the planetary level to the whole Earth of changing the climate, where they just don't recognize these deeper levels of reality that are part of the forest that they're cutting down and part of themselves that they're cutting off and killing themselves with without knowing they're doing it or caring because they're so limited with their consciousness. And that's where we need to free ourselves, where we see that those trees are giving us the oxygen that's allowing us to breathe and giving us the weather patterns that allow us to have a stable environment. And we just aren't having people operate at these deeper levels of consciousness that are necessary for us to be in oneness with the reality that's keeping us alive.
Mm. That's so interesting what you said, that when we cut these forests down or cut these trees down, we're cutting an aspect of ourselves. That's part of us. And I think that is can be hard to comprehend and see because we're so different. And but that aspect, taking that in, feels so good to think about, because then it's easier to treat the forest with respect and love and
Mhm.
give them the respect they deserve.
So we're in a trap in a sense. We've created from years ago, 250 years ago, we created this system called capitalism that says, oh, you as an individual and as a corporation are what matters. This is where success is built. This is what we will feed money into and feed prestige, and you'll get all these power, uniqueness, worth, and love fed through capitalism. And the dilemma is that we need a economic system that says, no, we need to value not just these top two levels of satisfying individual and corporate needs. We need to satisfy the whole of reality. And therefore, we need an economic system that says we value the oneness of all we are rather than just what we uh, traditionally have been taught to value with the system that we've been operating in. And so we have this real challenge of how do we break our addictions to old systems that are ultimately successful but killing us at the same time, and evolve new systems that are based on the oneness of what it takes to have a healthy and sustainable future.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. So, we have a comment. Thanks for the meditation. You mentioned oneness, so powerful and important, vital. Cheers. So it's an appreciation. And and then there's a poem from Rumi. This is how a human being can change. There's a worm addicted to eating grape leaves. Suddenly he wakes up, call it grace, whatever, something wakes him. He's no longer a worm. He's the entire vineyard and the orchard too, the fruit, the trunks, a growing wisdom and joy that doesn't need to devour. So thanks for sharing that in the comments.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Do you have anything to say to that, Tom?
Well, we're also trapped in this world of where we do have to consume things and destroy things, but we need to do that with a awareness that we can't just consume the whole plant and expect to ever drink grapes and wine from the grapes again. We've got to do it in a limited way where it allows the sanctity of life on all ends to be protected as we're doing the consumption we need to do to be able to survive as an individual or as
Mm,
a species.
yes, that makes sense. Well, wonderful. While we're waiting for more questions, I'd like to play another clip. Can we play a clip from the masterclass?
Sure.
Okay.
Now I'd like to take you into a different realm of how to embrace these ultimate challenges we have of being all we are. And that means I'll guide you through a meditation that will allow you to experience how to be one with each of these 6 levels of who we are and the 6 levels of what reality is. So we can, in a sense, marry the 2 of these so we're living in integrity with who we are and what reality is together. So I'd like to have you take a moment to be able to ground yourself in a comfortable place. That means if you're driving a car or operating anything dangerous that you need to stop.
And those 6 levels I have listed in terms of the presentation I'd done earlier, were different levels of oneness of what we can do beyond what I've shared with you today. So you can always tap into that by going to HumanityStream and reviewing some of those presentations that I did earlier to be able to allow us to um, just find as many different ways we can break our trance in from our separateness into seeing that we're really all in this together, and we're in it together with everything on all 6 of these levels if we're going to be successful, because that's the way reality is really structured, and that we're participating in it and that we're supported to be part of it. And if we don't join that bigger reality and we continue to live just in these more superficial versions of it's all about us and our groups, then we will end up losing the game and losing our lives and destroying much of the life systems that have developed for billions of years, or at least millions of years, that we're taking down with us. And so it's a tragic setting we're in terms of if we don't, in a sense, grow up and dedicate our lives to being more of our spiritual nature, integrating our human nature into that spiritual realm of that we're really one with everything all the time. And how do I see that in everything I'm doing and recognize the ripple effects I'm having on the rest of the world that normally I don't register, because we aren't taught to register those things and see those things and experience them like you were with experiencing the tree, in a way that really tapped into your heart in ways where you could feel it uh, as being an extension of you.
Yes. Well, our time is up today, and thank you everyone for joining us for a healthy, sustainable vision for the future of humanity with Tom Bougsty. Join Stream Plus now and gain immediate access to hundreds of incredible spiritual teachers and programs. We are proud to say that HumanityStream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising masterclasses and transformational education. We are a nonprofit and also give back with our One for One program. I wanted to thank Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, and the production team, Jim Gray, Garth Catterall, Andy Gutsky, Karen Weissert, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanity's team. We're so grateful for all of you. And I'm grateful for you, Tom, for sharing your wisdom today. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for helping me do this.
Have a blessed day, everyone.